Hey, this is Joe Martinez, and I am a ring announcer working for the UFC and Golden Boy Promotions, as well as Invicta FC. Catch it all live around the world.
A crazy year. So many, it's unprecedented what's happened with COVID. The UFC has kind of been, and other promotions, it's kind of been the sport that's sort of battled through it more than others. What's your experience been still working during the pandemic?
Being allowed to work has been incredible. I was off for 75 days. I did the last show in Brazil, UFC, and that was the arena that was empty. And then it was lockdown. Everything was shut off from then. And then, the 11 weeks off was nice to be at home, to catch up with the family and do that type of stuff. But being back in the octagon or in the boxing ring has just really been very welcome. You can only handle being around that family for so long before you start going stir crazy. You run out of projects to do. So yeah, it's been great, man.
You obviously had the chance to take part in Fight Island, which is, I mean, as a fan, it was one of the most incredible experiences to watch. How was it there? Experience, the testing and the hospitality, the hotel, the whole experience of Fight Island. How was it as someone who was involved?
It was so well done. And it was there was I think we had an added piece of security, sense of security, that peace of mind, knowing that we're in the safest place in the world. And to be in that environment is definitely, during this time, a welcome situation to be in. The hotel staff at the W was incredible. From the first time we went in July to October when we were there, for the 5 weeks, I was there for 3 weeks. Just amazing. I mean, just at your beck and call, and not taking advantage of them. I don't think anybody did, but we were treated so well. And I just think that's the way they handle everything, whether it's pandemic or it's regular life. They're just genuinely good people over there. So we had a great time. The testing was it can be a nuisance because you have to do it. Um, and just to go, from the beginning, you basically, for my situation, anybody in the US, we would fly to Las Vegas, we would test and quarantine for 24 hours, and then hop on the charter, get to Abu Dhabi, go to the hotel, test, go to your room. 24 hours later, go test again. And then 24 hours later, you're released. And then you're free to roam about the green zone, the safe zone, which opens you up to a whole new menu of food. So it's really incredible. It was nice.
You obviously, as an announcer, I imagine feeding off the fans' energy is a big part of the job. And you obviously experienced the first time no fans this year in Brazil. How's it been like since then, adapting? And do you prefer no fans, or do you prefer having the fans there when you announce? What kind of difference has it made for you?
I absolutely prefer having fans present. I grew up a sports fan and became a baseball announcer before I became a fight announcer. So I worked in minor league baseball for 22 years, and oftentimes during the months of April, May until summer, Tuesday, Wednesday night baseball games in the evening at the stadium are virtually empty. People don't typically show up until the weekend. So I had a lot of practice announcing to nobody, you know. So for me, it wasn't really that big of an issue. I think if you wanted to add pressure, more people are watching because nobody is present. So if you want to play a head game with yourself and say, "Oh my gosh, there's millions more watching now," but no, I don't do that. So it was fun. I enjoy it. Feel like there's less pressure, actually.
You mentioned you were, before a fight announcer, you did baseball announcing. How did the transition happen where you became a combat sport announcer? Was it difficult? Was it something that came naturally? And what was the sort of the pinpoint where you thought this is something that I'm good at?
Yeah, it everything in my life happened by accident or God's plan. I started announcing baseball. I broke my wrist in high school, and asked the coach if I could announce. I just like to mess around talking, and he says, "Sure, go for it." So that's where I kind of caught the bug, and then did it in college. And while I was announcing a basketball game, the scoreboard operator worked for the commission in California. He says, "Joe, you got to get into boxing announcing." And I said, "Sure, that'd be great, but I don't know anybody." And he goes, "Well, let me see what I can do." And a couple months later, I got a phone call from a promoter, and he says, "Hey, your uncle says you're a fight announcer, and I got a show coming up." And I said, "Great, yes, I can do it." And I have no uncles that are present in California. And I said, which uncle were you talking to? And he says, "Dean." So I had to play it off. I'm like, "Oh yeah, Uncle Dean. Yes, yes, thank you so much." And that was the beginning uh, of this. It's just been phenomenal, mind blowing.
Every announcer sort of has their style. We've seen, Michael Buffer, Let's Go Into Ramble. Bruce Buffer's got its time. How do you sort of consciously develop a style that you wanted people to see, or did you get in there and it's just what happened? It just came out and you thought that's the style that works.
Mm. Yeah, I guess I had plenty of opportunities or time to hone the style. I before got into boxing, I I enjoyed, like I said, I watched fights a lot, and Jimmy Lennon Jr. and Michael Buffer were the two guys you always saw. And I loved the class of Jimmy and the style, the presence, the pace, and I loved the inflection and power of Michael's voice. And I felt like I could mix the two and try to carry myself that way. So I don't want to say I copied them, emulate, maybe imitation a little bit here and there, um, but I believe I developed my own way, and I hope it sounds like it's my own.
Yeah, it certainly does. I was speaking to someone the other day actually about your announcing, and we both agreed you're the first announcer who sort of is so effective without shouting in a sort of aggressive way, which I think works really well. Obviously, I think it was 2012 you first appeared in the UFC. Um,
Yeah, I believe you're right.
so we saw recently people like John Anik before their Fight Island sort of showed the work that goes into creating their side of the work. What kind of work goes into announcing? I think fans and people who watch events, they see you step in the ring and they see you do these big announcements, but I don't think anyone really sees what goes on behind the scenes. So before a show, what kind of work do you have to do in research before announcing for these fighters?
Well, yeah, we get a fight Bible. Basically, it's emailed to you, and it's all the content for every fighter. Their whole biography, and you pick from there. My gig is not as tedious as say Anik or Brendan. Um, so my studying is more like I need to have my numbers correct, and I need to say a name correctly. And that's what I really pride myself on is getting the phonetics down, the inflection where it needs to be, um, and writing things out, phonetically, so I can say it correctly. Because the worst thing is a fighter to come up to you and say, "Hey, man," because I like Rosenstruik. We did a show in Brazil, and I think I called him Rosenstruik because the R in Brazil is an H sound, and I didn't get worn out from him, but I was told that it's not Rosenstruik. And I was like, and I hate when that happens, man. I really, it bothers me more than saying an incorrect record. I don't want to do anything wrong, but when you get somebody's name wrong, I take a lot of pride in that stuff. I had a show in Invicta probably last year, a year and a half ago, and I could not say Minneapolis. And I don't know who the fighter was, but I kept saying, I said from Minneapolis, like Minneapolis. I just couldn't say Minneapolis. Well, that was the introduction. I get out of the cage and I'm like, darn it, man. I said, I hope I get a chance to do this again. And of course, she won. So I'm like, your winner from Minneapolis. I said it again. I'm like, golly darn it, man. So we kind of had a chuckle afterwards, and she was forgiving. I hope Minneapolis was forgiving as well, the city, as a whole. But yeah, it's one thing we do get though are audio files. So we get the actual fighter saying their own name, and you can you hear it, and we kind of John and I and Brendan and our producer will agree that this is the way it sounds and this is the way it should be said. So that's what we all collectively do.
That's interesting. I never knew that. Um, the pressure, obviously, you've done it for so long. You still feel that same element of pressure, and you get nervous when you go into the octagon because, as you said, so many people watching, and everybody's listening to one voice, and that's coming out of you. So, is there still that element of pressure now, even after so long?
No, I don't feel pressure. Um, I do get anxious, before shows. And it's like I don't eat well before a show, because I think just I don't ever want to not do my best. I do not ever want to come out unprepared. So I can't sleep very well, especially like on Fight Island, because we had shows at, midnight, 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. And it's very uncommon for sure. Um, and you don't want, well, for me personally, like I'll get up. I try to stay on a West Coast, East Coast schedule, the time zone, Pacific and Atlantic, or so I'm sorry, Eastern. And getting over there, I tried to maintain that same schedule. So I was going to bed 8, 9, 10 o'clock in the morning and waking up at 6 p.m. or 7 p.m. And then the show comes on at midnight. Well, I try to take a nap in between that 6 to 12 area and just freak out. It's a lot of paranoid sleep. You know what it's like. You don't want to miss something, so you set like 6 alarms and a knock on the door and a hotel call to the room. Um, so yeah, I mean, I deal with that. But yeah, we made it through it.
And I spoke at the start of lockdown to Bruce Buffer, and I asked him if he had a favorite name, a favorite fighter to announce, and he said his was Georges St Pierre. So, have you announced a fighter and you've thought that name's the one? That's the best name I want to announce.
I think probably my favorite name that I've always gotten to say, or had since WEC, and I think it's probably everybody's favorite name that I do say would be Uriah Faber. Yeah, I feel like that's the one that kind of, I don't want to say put me on a map or anything like that, but I do know that he and Uriah and I have had that. We've had a long standing friendship, and I'm actually still his voicemail. If you were to call him, he had me do his voicemail for him. So I enjoy saying his name. He must like it because he still has it after, I don't know, 10 years, 15 years, whatever it's been.
And the last one from me, just so you have this partnership with the UFC as their backup announcer. Is it you go in with set dates per year and you know what you're doing, or is it a case of a few weeks before they'll call you and they'll say, we need you for this one? So each year, do you know going in how many dates you've got with the UFC?
My contract guarantees me 10 minimum for the year, but they're very fair with me. And the minimum doesn't mean that's only. I This year when we hit December, I'll have done 13. So it's just to keep me at peace, I guess. It's a very difficult profession to be in when you don't know how many you're going to do. And that was kind of my whole thing when we went to negotiate, a few years ago. I was like, look, I need to know because I'm raising, I got a family. I have 4 kids and my wife and a home, all these things to maintain and take care of. I can't have a regular job, say a 9 to 5, and ask for all these days off every year. So if you guys can kind of give me a layout and some advance notice. So I already know my first 2 shows of the year in January and February for UFC. Um, so that's just proof there that I have well enough notice in advance to prepare for absences and and prepare the kids mentally. My kids lose it when I leave. It's very difficult. Even this weekend trip to Invicta in Kansas City, my son was, Dad, I don't want you to go. And just we get emotional. I'm a very emotional person, especially when it comes to my kids, and I don't hide my emotions very well. So if it's heavy on me, it's definitely weighing heavy on them because I can't hide it. My wife's like, "Why do you do this to them?" I'm like, "I know I can't take them to school anymore. If I'm leaving, I just have to leave, um, just so we can I don't even know. It's like, where's Dad? Oh, he's at work. And then maybe it would be a little bit easier, but they count days just like I do. And we always have something going on during the week if it's bike riding or hiking or doing work, and just we're always together. We're very close family, and I love that. I love that.
Amazing. So that's the last question.
Hey, this is ring announcer Joe Martinez, and you're listening to Ropes and Cage.